I want you to just picture this for a second. You fast forward 30 years. That last mortgage payment, it's gone. It's set.
Yeah.
The bank sends you the title. You've got the papers. You've got the keys. It's over. You did it. The house is finally actually yours.
Except it's not. And that is the systemic betrayal that millions of Americans are just now waking up to. That whole idea that ownership means you're done, you're safe, it's a lie.
It's a complete lie.
The minute you stop paying the bank, the government effectively becomes your new landlord, and those payments, they never ever end.
That's the core of it, isn't it? The lie. You spend your life believing that paid off means safety, security. You think you've built something, generational wealth.
Mm-hmm.
But what you actually have is, it's like a subscription, a perpetual, always escalating subscription to your own home. You're just renting it forever from the state.
And that rent, that annual bill, it can go up without warning. It doesn't care if you're on a fixed income, if you're retired, if your salary hasn't budged in 10 years. The bill just comes.
And this isn't just some fringe issue anymore. It's a full-blown crisis.
It's a crisis that has hit a really devastating milestone. Today, right now, more homes in the United States are being lost to property tax foreclosure than to mortgage default.
Wait, hold on a second. Say that again. More homes are lost to the county tax man than to the huge, Wall Street banks.
That's the reality. Let that sink in for a minute, because it completely flips everything we thought we knew about risk.
That statistic should stop every single homeowner dead in their tracks.
People are losing their homes not because they defaulted on a huge loan to a private company, but because they couldn't keep up with these endless rising government taxes. The biggest threat to your equity is no longer the bank. It's the government demanding its annual fee.
So the threat doesn't disappear. It just paid faux. It changes uniforms. It goes from a corporate logo to a government seal. And here's the crazy part. Once the mortgage is gone, you're actually more vulnerable.
Exactly. Being paid off means you're exposed. And that realization is what's fueling this huge cross-state political revolt.
A revolt that's moved way past asking for, a little relief here and there.
Oh, way past that. People aren't asking for tax credits anymore. They are demanding a total reset. They're demanding elimination. We're tracking five separate states that are now seriously talking about a path to zero property tax.
Zero, as in gone.
Gone for good. And it's all being driven by homeowners who feel like they're being crushed by this quiet, perfectly legal system of wealth extraction.
And that's the mission for this deep dive. We need to explain why these 5 states, from Pennsylvania all the way to North Dakota, are taking this radical step. We're going to break down exactly how this system strips wealth from the most vulnerable people and what true home ownership, unencumbered ownership could actually look like.
Because if you don't understand how the betrayal works, you can never, ever find the solution.
Stay with us as we expose the full truth right here on The Deep Dive. If you want the news they don't want you to hear, hit that subscribe button right now. Okay, so let's dig into this illusion of ownership. When you sign that mortgage, you know what you're getting into, 30 years of debt.
Yeah.
But the bargain, the psychological payoff at the end is supposed to be total ownership.
Right, finality.
But the fine print, the real rules, say your ownership is just conditional. It's just permission to be there.
It's the ultimate betrayal of the social contract because it violates that principle of finality. You're told your whole life that when that mortgage is paid, you've achieved something real. Stability.
Yeah.
But the government's collection machine says the payments never stop. They don't care that you already paid for the house with money that was already taxed as income. They just don't.
And they especially don't care about your ability to pay now. I mean, think about the most financially fragile people, retirees on a fixed income, Social Security, SSDI. That bill shows up no matter what.
And that's a critical structural point. Benefits like SSI and SSDI, they have cost of living adjustments, sure, but those rarely keep up with how fast local property taxes are exploding.
Not even close.
The outrage comes from that realization. The system has no mercy button. There's no built-in forbearance for people whose income is fixed or even going down. All that wealth you spent 3 decades building, all that equity, it's always just one bad medical bill, one assessment spike away from being taken.
So the flaw is the tax itself, the fact that it just never ends.
Exactly. It creates this impossible legal situation. I mean, think about it. If you can lose an asset you paid for in full, a house worth, say, $500,000, all because you missed a couple of annual payments of a few $1,000s.
Then you never really owned it.
You never owned it. Ownership in this system is just conditional permission to live there. And when you break the condition, the permission gets revoked. That one single terrifying thought is what's fueling all this fury.
But I'm still stuck on this idea,
Mhm.
this paradox that a paid-off home is somehow more vulnerable. It just feels so backwards. How can being in debt be safer than being debt-free?
It's all about the mechanics.
Yeah.
It's purely a legal and financial mechanism built on self-interest. When you have a mortgage, the bank has a huge financial stake in making sure those property taxes get paid.
Why?
Because a government tax lien has what's called sovereign priority. It jumps to the front of the line ahead of everything else, ahead of the bank's mortgage.
So if I stop paying my taxes, the county can push the bank with its, million-dollar loan
Yep.
to the back of the line.
Immediately, and the banks know this. So they're extremely motivated to protect their investment. That's why they set up escrow accounts. They pay the taxes for you to make sure it gets done.
Right, the escrow.
And if you fall behind, they have armies of lawyers. They have the financial power to step in. They'll pay the tax bill themselves and just add it to what you owe them, because letting the county foreclose would wipe out their entire investment. The bank acts as this powerful, well-funded shield.
A shield against the government's power to seize the property. That makes total sense. They're a buffer. But the second that mortgage is paid off,
The shield just vanishes. The lien is released, and it's just you. Your savings account against the county's deadline. There's no one to negotiate, no one to intervene. It's just you and an automated collection system that's designed to prioritize revenue over your life's work.
and we have to really emphasize this for everyone listening, the seizure of a huge asset, a $500,000 house, over a debt that could be, what, $5,000? $10,000? Can the government really do that without some massive, years-long court battle?
It's not a theory. It is codified in state law all across the country. And the process can be shockingly fast. If the taxes go unpaid for long enough, and sometimes that's just a couple of years, the government, or more often, as we'll get into, a private investor, can take the home outright.
And you owe nothing to the bank.
Nothing. But the house is gone. The equity you spent a lifetime building just evaporates.
The imbalance there is it's staggering. It puts the tax collector at the absolute top of the financial food chain. Above the bank, above the homeowner, above everyone.
And this isn't some rare, unfortunate thing. It is an active, rapid transfer of wealth. And when people see that, their thinking shifts. It stops being unfortunate enforcement, and it starts looking a lot more like systemic extraction.
Right. It stops being about paying for schools and starts being about somebody else acquiring your asset.
Which brings us to how this is all happening so quietly. It's not just the county seizing homes. It's the way the process has been outsourced to, frankly, financial predators who specialize in this.
This whole process of property tax foreclosure has been normalized, hasn't it? We just accept it as, the cost of having local services.
We do, but its main effect is stripping wealth from the people who played by all the rural seniors, fixed-income families. The system isn't just about enforcement. It's designed to determine who profits when a homeowner gets into trouble.
So let's talk about tax lien sales.
Okay.
Because this is where it stops being about the government and becomes a private for-profit industry. Most people probably think the county is the one doing all this.
And that's the key misunderstanding. In a lot of places, the county doesn't want to be in the business of foreclosing. So when a homeowner falls behind, the county just sells the debt. They sell the tax lien.
The right to collect that money.
Exactly, the right to collect the debt plus interest and penalties, and they sell it to professional private investors. These are firms that specialize in buying up what they call distressed assets. They're not your neighbors. They are buying a high-interest, legally protected claim on your home equity.
So they're buying permission.
They are buying permission to threaten you, permission to charge incredibly high interest rates, permission to tack on legal fees, and ultimately permission to foreclose and take the property itself.
And the numbers just spiral out of control.
Devastatingly fast. A small debt, maybe $4,000, starts compounding. State laws allow for interest rates of 12, 20, sometimes over 30% a year, plus penalties. If you are already struggling to pay the $4,000, how can you possibly pay it back when it becomes 8, then 12? It's an impossible hole.
And during this time, the homeowner is in what's called the redemption period. They have a limited window to pay the investor back everything.
And that clock is the investor's best friend. They just wait. They let the interest pile up. And if the homeowner misses that final deadline, the investor can legally start the foreclosure process and take the house.
And then they get a property worth hundreds of thousands of dollars for basically pennies on the dollar, just the cost of that original small debt plus their fees. And the homeowner.
The homeowner, who might have lived there for 40 years, walks away with absolutely nothing. All that equity they built is just gone. wiped out by fees and penalties. The investor isn't required to pay them for the difference in value. It's a completely legal, clean transfer of wealth.
It's a silent killer.
Hmm.
And it hits seniors the hardest, doesn't it? People who might be dealing with cognitive decline or just struggling with all the bureaucracy of aging.
It's a calculated financial strategy that's disguised as a boring administrative process. It's all perfectly legal, but the human cost,
Yeah.
it's just catastrophic.
I mean, can you imagine? A retiree in her 70s, paid off her home in the 90s, did everything right. But then a health crisis hits.
Yeah.
There's confusing Medicare paperwork, a bill gets missed, and suddenly that one tiny error gets weaponized.
And a specialized financial firm buys that debt, waits, and then seizes her life's biggest asset.
Wow.
That's not a public service. That is quiet, legalized theft.
And it's not just the financial loss at the end. It's the anxiety, the constant stress leading up to it.
That's right. We heard this one story that just perfectly captures it. This woman, she missed her grandson's baseball game. And it wasn't because she didn't care. It's because she was stuck at home on the phone for hours trying to fix a complex billing error with her medical plan that was tangled up with her tax bill.
Oh, wow.
She missed a moment with her family she can never get back because the system demands this constant, exhausting vigilance just to stay afloat.
That's it. That's the real cost of a broken system.
Mhm.
It doesn't just steal your money. It steals your time. It steals your peace of mind.
Yeah.
It steals those moments. And when you're home, the one place you're supposed to be safe becomes the source of that threat. Everything else just shrinks.
Your home should be the reward. It should be security. When it becomes a constant source of stress, the whole deal feels broken. And that pressure is now getting so much worse because of a second crisis that's piling on top.
Right. Because it's not just property taxes anymore. They've now teamed up with another monster, exploding insurance premiums.
It's a true compounding crisis. It's a perfect storm hitting homeowners, especially in states like Florida and Texas. People are opening their mail and seeing their insurance has doubled or even tripled in a single year. And at the exact same time, their property taxes are spiking because of crazy reassessments.
And the result is just staggering. You take those two costs, the property tax and the insurance, and together they often cost more than the original monthly mortgage payment.
Just think about how absurd that is. You did the 30-year plan, you got rid of the big debt, and now your monthly housing cost is higher than it was when you were paying off a massive loan.
It feels like a punishment for doing the right thing.
It is a punishment, and that's why people have started calling it the subscription model of housing. You didn't buy an asset, you just signed up for a service, and if you miss a payment, the service gets canceled and they take the product back.
And unlike a mortgage, which was fixed, these costs are totally unpredictable.
Completely unpredictable. The county can reassess your home's value whenever they want. Insurers can double your rates because of a storm on the other side of the world. You have zero control. It's just permanent, unavoidable stress.
And this all happens while politicians pretend they're helping, right? This gets us to the predatory assessment cycle.
It does. Local governments need money for schools, police, roads. It's politically toxic to raise the tax rate. Everyone sees that. So instead, they quietly raise the assessment, the value of your home.
And they can just blame the market.
They blame the market. They say, hey, good news, your house is worth more. But you can't pay your tax bill with theoretical equity. And this is where people feel completely gaslit.
The state legislature passes some big property tax relief bill.
Right.
And a few months later, the notice from the county comes, and your home's value has jumped 30%. The new lower tax rate gets applied to a much higher number, and your bill goes up anyway.
Let's just do the simple math. Your home was assessed at $300,000. The tax rate was 1%, so you paid $3,000. The politicians pass a 10% rate cut. The new rate is 0.9%. Sounds great.
Sounds great.
But then the county reassesses your home at $400,000. Now you're paying 0.9% of that, which is $3,600. Your bill just went up 20% after they gave you relief.
And the politician gets to run for re-election saying they cut the tax rate.
Well, you're stuck with a higher bill. That's what destroys trust. When the system demands more from you, especially when times are tough, and the help they offer is just smoke and mirrors, you stop seeing it as fair. You start seeing it as predatory.
And when you realize you're on this hamster wheel of rising values and fake relief, you stop asking for small changes.
You stop asking for relief. You start demanding elimination. You want off the wheel for good.
You want it to end.
That's the breaking point. And it's created this incredibly powerful movement that's ironically strongest in the states that built their whole brand on being pro-freedom and pro-ownership.
The irony is just It's overwhelming. This whole thing didn't start in some think tank. It started as a matter of survival. These states got rid of their income tax and just shifted the entire weight onto property taxes. They just traded one kind of pain for another.
And their biggest supporters, retirees, middle-class families, started realizing the promise was hollow. They moved to Florida or Texas for low taxes and found the financial pain was just different, and maybe even worse because it was so unpredictable.
So when their core voters started having to sell their paid-off homes because they couldn't afford to stay, the politicians had to listen. The voters got ahead of them.
For years, leaders just dodged the issue. They'd say it's too complicated, what about the schools? But once people started asking the fundamental question, why does this tax exist forever? You can't unask it, and that's what we're seeing in these 5 states.
So let's run through them, because it shows this isn't some coordinated plot. It's the same pressure building up in different places and exploding.
Let's start with Pennsylvania. There, the tax is completely tied to school funding. The push for elimination is coming from the sheer number of families losing their homes just to fund schools. The talk now is about replacing the entire system from the state level.
But how do they replace that money? It has to come from somewhere.
It would be a huge change. They're talking about increasing the state sales tax, maybe even taxing retirement income to create one big central fund for schools. It's a painful choice, but they see the current system as even more painful.
Okay, then you have Texas, which just tried to throw money at it.
A lot of money. Over $50 billion in tax relief. And what happened? The housing market exploded, and rising home values basically erased all those gains overnight. It proved that relief is just a Band-Aid. So now, after that expensive failure, total elimination is on the table.
And Florida feels like the epicenter of this whole compounding crisis.
Florida is ground zero. It's where you have high taxes crashing into insane insurance costs. The retirees the state depends on just can't survive it. So lawmakers there are pushing for constitutional amendments to slash or get rid of property taxes on your primary home.
And a constitutional amendment is a huge deal. That needs a 60% supermajority vote. So this is coming from the people, not just the politicians.
Exactly. Then there's Ohio. The movement there really started from the ground up with citizens. They launched a constitutional initiative after entire neighborhoods got hit with massive assessment spikes, some over 40% in one go.
Wow.
It showed everyone how unstable the system is. And finally, you have the most interesting case, North Dakota.
The one with a plan.
The one place where the math actually works. They have this massive legacy reserve fund from their oil boom. It generates hundreds of millions a year in interest alone. They can realistically use that money to replace property tax revenue and fund their schools and cities without ever touching the principal. They're the proof that an alternative is possible.
So 5 very different states, all arriving at the same conclusion. The old system is broken. It punishes people for staying in their homes.
And you can't discount the national mood either. When you have figures like President Trump dominating the conversation, it changes the dynamic. It sends a kind of cultural signal.
A permission slip.
A permission slip for states to rethink these systems that everyone thought were untouchable. Property tax stops being a boring local issue and becomes a symbolic fight over what ownership really means.
Does it mean you have control, or do you just have permission from the state?
And that leads to the biggest question of all, the one everyone is probably yelling right now. If you get rid of property taxes, what's the replacement? Schools, police, fire departments, they still need funding.
Right. The money has to come from somewhere. The debate isn't if we pay for services, it's how we pay for them. And who carries that burden?
And this is where North Dakota becomes the blueprint. They have a stable funding source that doesn't depend on squeezing homeowners. It decouples essential services from homeowner vulnerability.
What about states like Ohio or Pennsylvania that don't have a giant oil fund?
It gets harder. They'd have to look at consumption taxes like sales tax, maybe even a value-added tax. And the big political fight there is that sales taxes can hit lower-income people harder. It's a valid concern.
But you could argue the current system is already predatory, especially for seniors on a fixed income. It literally forces them from their homes. At least with a sales tax, you have some control over how much you spend. With property tax, you have none.
And that's the core argument. The replacement options might be painful, but at least they're predictable. Homeowners are already paying a huge price. They're paying with their savings, their security, their equity. The status quo is a time bomb.
So the fact that there isn't a perfect replacement plan doesn't slow this down. It actually speeds it up. Because the current system is so unbearable, people aren't waiting for a perfect solution. They just want the escape hatch.
They look at their TV, which they bought 30 years ago and paid sales tax on once, and they ask themselves, why is my home the most important thing I own any different? Why does it require this perpetual rising payment forever?
A paid-off home shouldn't feel like a ticking clock managed by a collections agency.
Illumination isn't just popular because it's a radical idea. It's popular because it's final. It's the only solution that truly ends the cycle of anxiety and stops the legalized extraction of wealth. And that demand is finally getting loud enough to really scare the people in charge.
So it all comes down to one question, really, a question for every single person listening. Do you actually own your home? Or are you just renting it from the government on terms that get worse every single year?
If you can lose it after it's paid off, if the taxes never stop, if investors can legally seize your life savings over one missed bill, then ownership is just conditional permission. This fight is only going to accelerate because the truth is out and people want finality. They want real ownership.
That's the financial reality we're facing. But I want to know what you think. Should the government be allowed to seize a paid-off home over missed property taxes, or should there be a constitutional protection for seniors and fixed-income residents? Let us know your opinion in the comments below. We read every single one. I'm Alex.
And I'm Sophia. Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive.